I'm Eloise, 28, a survivor of a family that valued Instagram likes over loyalty. As an admin at our family's real estate empire in Seattle, I kept the gears turning, closing million-dollar deals. But my parents, the company's king and queen, only saw my sister Margot, their influencer darling, cozying up to a big-shot investor. At a glitzy gala, they gifted her a Bentley for her brand, while I got a single dollar to learn to save. That betrayal was just the start. I uncovered a secret that could have landed me in prison, and I struck back hard. What I did at 2 a.m. changed everything. Drop in the comments where you're watching from and what time it is. I'd love to know. Hit subscribe to catch more raw stories like mine. Stick around. You won't believe how this unfolds. The Four Seasons in Seattle shimmered like a goddamn constellation that night, its chandeliers casting prisms across a sea of tuxedos and sequined gowns. I stood there, Eloise, 28 years old, a nobody admin at Turner Properties, my family's real estate empire. For 5 years, I'd been the invisible engine behind it, chasing down contracts, soothing cranky clients, juggling schedules to keep the millions rolling in. My hands were calloused from paperwork, my nights spent hunched over spreadsheets while the city slept. But in that ballroom, packed with Seattle's elite, I felt like a ghost in my own life, clutching a glass of cheap champagne in a thrift store dress that scratched my skin. I'm not one for self-pity, but let me set the scene. The gala was Turner Properties' annual flex, our chance to dazzle investors, clients, and the local press. The air smelled of truffle hors d'oeuvres and ambition, with jazz humming softly from a live band. Mom and Dad, the untouchable monarchs of this empire, glided through the crowd, all polished smiles and tailored suits. My sister, Margot, 24, floated beside them, her influencer glow practically blinding. 200,000 Instagram followers, a wardrobe worth more than my car, and a smirk that said she owned the room. Me? I was the one who'd spent weeks organizing this event, from booking the venue to triple-checking the guest list. But no one noticed. I was just Eloise, the reliable one, the one who didn't need a spotlight. As the night wore on, Dad climbed the stage, his voice booming like a preacher's. Tonight we celebrate Turner Properties' success and one very special contribution. The crowd hushed, eyes on him. My stomach fluttered. Maybe, just maybe. They'd seen my work, the late nights, the deals I'd closed, the VIP client list I'd built from scratch. Maybe this was my moment. To Margot, he declared, for elevating our brand to new heights. The room erupted in applause as Mom pulled a velvet curtain aside in the courtyard, revealing a Bentley Continental, its black curves gleaming under floodlights, a red ribbon tied around it like a gift from a fairy tale. Margot squealed, her heels clicking across the marble as she ran to it, already live streaming to her adoring fans. "Oh my God, you guys, it's mine," she shrieked, her voice echoing through the open doors. I stood frozen, my champagne glass trembling in my hand. The crowd's cheers felt like static in my ears. Margot? For what? Her half-assed Instagram posts tagging our listings. Her brand that amounted to selfies with overpriced coffee. I'd been the one keeping the company's heart beating, but they were crowning her the princess. Then Mom approached me, her smile tight as a drum, and handed me a slim envelope. "For you, Eloise," she said, her voice dripping with that patronizing tone she'd perfected over the years. Something practical. My fingers fumbled as I tore it open, hoping for a bonus check, a thank you, anything. A single dollar bill fluttered to the floor, a post-it note stuck to it. Eloise, learn to save. The room spun. Colleagues nearby snickered, their whispers cutting like knives. $1, seriously, one muttered, loud enough to sting. My face burned, my throat tight with unshed tears. "What the actual fuck?" I hissed under my breath, low enough so no one could hear, but the words felt like a scream trapped in my chest. I wanted to hurl that dollar at their smug faces, to storm the stage and demand why I was worth so little. Was I their daughter, or just the help, some disposable cog in their machine? I looked at Margot, laughing as she slid into the Bentley's leather seats, and at my parents, beaming like they'd just won the lottery. I was invisible, a shadow in their perfect family portrait. I don't know how I made it through the rest of the night. I smiled, nodded, played the good daughter while my insides churned. Every clink of champagne glasses felt like a mockery, every glance from a colleague a reminder of my humiliation. I kept that dollar in my purse, its weight heavier than the Bentley outside. Driving home through Seattle's drizzle, the city's neon lights blurred through my windshield, mirroring the fog in my mind. I'd given everything to Turner Properties, my time, my energy, my goddamn soul. And for what? $1 and a pat on the head, while Margot got a car worth more than my entire life's savings. I parked outside my cramped apartment, the engine of my beat-up Toyota ticking like a bomb. Sitting there, rain drumming on the roof, I replayed every moment of that night, the Bentley's shine, Margot's squeal, Mom's cold smile. I wasn't just hurt. I was furious, a survivor clawing out of a trap I hadn't seen closing around me. That dollar wasn't just an insult. It was a wake-up call. Something was wrong, deeper than I'd ever admitted. I didn't know what I'd do next, but I knew one thing. I couldn't stay in their world anymore. I'd been their workhorse too long, and I was done begging for scraps. The rain kept pounding my car's roof as I sat outside my apartment. That damn dollar bill still burning a hole in my purse from the gala. The Seattle skyline flickered through the fog, its cold glow matching the ache in my chest. I'm Eloise, the one who survived being erased in my own family. And that night, the humiliation of being handed $1 while Margot drove off in a Bentley cracked open memories I'd buried deep. I wasn't just mad. I was unraveling, forced to face a truth I'd dodged for years. My parents had always chosen her over me, and I'd let it happen. Growing up in our waterfront mansion, with its floor-to-ceiling windows and manicured lawns, felt like living in a movie where I was an extra. Margot, 4 years younger, was the star, her Instagram lighting up with likes while I faded into the background. At 16, I was bussing tables at a greasy diner to pay for SAT prep courses, my sneakers soaked from late-night shifts. Meanwhile, Mom and Dad gifted Margot a penthouse view of Puget Sound for her mental health when she flunked out of her fancy art school. They'd pat my shoulder saying, "You're so capable, Eloise. Margot's fragile. She needs us more." Fragile, my ass. She was fragile like a diamond, sparkling and untouchable, while I was expected to be steel, bending but never breaking. At Turner Properties, that pattern dug deeper, carving wounds I pretended didn't bleed. I started as an admin assistant right out of community college, my accounting degree earned through sleepless nights and instant coffee. I built our VIP client list from nothing, cold calling millionaires, charming them into deals, memorizing their kids' names to keep them loyal. That list was my masterpiece, the backbone of our multi-million-dollar portfolio. But in board meetings, Dad would drone on about Margot's brand influence, her Instagram posts, tagging our listings as if they were worth more than my 50-hour weeks. Once, I overheard him tell a client, "Margot's our face. She's got Charles Reed eating out of her hand." Charles, the big-shot investor with a yacht and a wandering eye, was the real reason they coddled her. Her 200,000 followers and flirty lunches with him were their ticket to his millions. I tried to speak up once, my voice shaking as I asked for a raise to fix my Toyota's busted transmission. I'd been driving it on fumes, praying it wouldn't die on the I-5. Mom looked at me over her wine glass, her lips pursed. "You're strong, Eloise. You'll figure it out." The next day, they wired Margot $10,000 for a networking trip with Charles to Aspen. I went back to my desk, swallowing the lump in my throat, and booked her flights while my own bills piled up on my kitchen counter. My apartment, a shoebox with peeling paint and a leaky faucet, was a constant reminder of how little I mattered. I'd stare at those bills at 3 a.m. thinking, what the fuck am I doing? Am I just their workhorse, grinding for their empire while Margot gets the crown? The worst part wasn't the money, it was the erasure. My high school graduation? They missed it for Margot's dance recital. My first big deal at work, a $2 million sale. Dad clapped me on the back, then spent dinner praising Margot's latest viral post. I kept telling myself I was fine, that being capable was enough. But every time they dismissed me, it was like a paper cut. Small, but over years, they'd sliced me to ribbons. I'd lie awake in my lumpy bed, the city's hum outside my window, wondering if I'd ever be more than their backup plan. Looking back, I see how they played us. Margot was their showpiece, her beauty and followers a shiny lure for investors like Charles. I was the grunt, the one they could rely on to keep the machine running without fuss. They didn't need to reward me. I'd do it anyway, right? That dollar bill at the gala wasn't just a slap. It was a mirror forcing me to see how I'd let them define my worth. As the rain slowed to a drizzle, I gripped my steering wheel, my knuckles white. I wasn't just hurt. I was done being their shadow. Something darker was stirring, a need to dig deeper to find out how far their betrayal went. I didn't know what I'd uncover, but I knew I couldn't stay silent anymore. That night, I was a survivor waking up, ready to claw my way out of their script. The rain had stopped, but the ache in my chest hadn't. I'm Eloise, the one who survived being erased by my own family. And after that gala where they handed me $1 while Margot got a Bentley, I couldn't go home. The city's hum was a dull roar outside my car, parked under a flickering street lamp. That dollar bill sat in my purse like a live grenade, and the memories it stirred, of years spent as my family's invisible workhorse, had me wired, unable to sleep. I needed to drown the pain, so I drove to the Turner Properties office, the only place I'd ever felt useful, even if it was a lie. It was 1 a.m., and the Seattle skyline glared through the office's glass walls, cold and unyielding, like the truth I was about to uncover. I slipped into the empty office, the hum of the HVAC the only sound. My desk, cluttered with sticky notes and client files, felt like a shrine to my wasted years. I wasn't here to work, though. I just needed something to do. Anything to dull the sting of being worth less than a cup of coffee to my parents. I sat at Dad's computer, his corner office smelling of leather and his overpriced cologne, to pull a client file I'd forgotten to send. His screen was still logged in, a careless habit I'd always fixed for him. As I clicked through folders, an email marked confidential loan docs caught my eye. My name was in the subject line, Eloise Turner, loan authorization. My stomach dropped. Why the hell was my name on something I'd never seen? I opened it, my heart thudding like a drum. The email chain was between Dad and our CFO, a guy named Greg with a handshake slimier than a used car salesman's. My eyes scanned the screen, and the words hit like a punch. They'd used my identity to sign a $1 million dummy loan to hide profits from the IRS. The documents had my signature, forged, of course, tying me to their tax evasion scheme. If the feds caught wind, I'd be the one facing prison, not them. All to keep Margot's influencer image spotless for Charles Reed, the investor they were wooing with her charm. One email from Greg read, Eloise's clean record makes her perfect for this. Margot's credit is a mess, and we can't risk scrutiny. Dad's reply was colder. Proceed? She won't notice. I sank into Dad's leather chair, the screen's glow burning my eyes. Are you fucking kidding me? I whispered, my voice cracking in the empty room. That dollar bill wasn't just an insult. It was a decoy, a cheap trick to keep me docile while they gambled my freedom. My hands shook as I scrolled through more emails, each one a nail in the coffin of my trust. They'd planned this for months, using my reliability, my capable nature, to shield their greed. Margot's Bentley, her penthouse, her whole damn princess act. It was all tied to Charles Reed's money, and I was the sacrificial lamb to keep the cash flowing. The office's glass walls seemed to close in, the city's lights mocking me from outside. I thought of every late night I'd spent here, every deal I'd closed, every time I'd swallowed their neglect, because I believed I could earn their love. But this was betrayal on a whole new level. They didn't just undervalue me. They were ready to let me rot in a cell to protect their golden child. My breath hitched, tears pricking my eyes, but I wouldn't let them fall. I wasn't the girl who cried anymore. I was a survivor, and survivors don't break. They fight. I stood, pacing the office, my sneakers squeaking on the polished floor. The dollar bill in my purse felt heavier now, a symbol of their cruelty. I could still hear Margot's squeal at the gala, see Mom's tight smile, Dad's proud grin. They thought I'd stay quiet, keep playing my role. But something snapped inside me, a fire igniting where despair had been. I wasn't just hurt. I was done being their pawn. I didn't know how yet, but I was going to make them pay. I'd find a way to take back what was mine, to turn their lies against them. As I gripped the edge of Dad's desk, the city's pulse outside syncing with my own, I knew this was the end of Eloise, the invisible daughter. Whoever I'd become next would be someone they couldn't ignore. I stood in Dad's office, the Seattle skyline glaring through the glass walls like a jury judging my next move. I'm Eloise, the survivor who just uncovered my family's betrayal, a $1 million fake loan in my name to shield their tax evasion and keep Margot's influencer halo shiny for their investor. The glow of Dad's computer screen burned my eyes, those damning emails still open, each word a fresh cut. My hands trembled, not with fear, but with a rage that felt like fire in my veins. I wasn't their pawn anymore. That dollar bill from the gala, that cruel joke, wasn't just an insult. It was the last straw. I was done being their invisible workhorse. It was time to hit back, and I knew exactly how. My VIP client list, the one I'd built through years of late nights and gritted teeth, was my ticket out. Every name, every deal, every trust I'd earned, that was mine, not Turner Properties. And those fraudulent documents, they were my weapon, proof of the lies they'd pinned on me to protect Margot's charmed life. At 1:45 a.m., I plugged a USB into Dad's computer, my pulse hammering like a war drum. The office was silent, save for the hum of the HVAC and the faint tick of a wall clock. I copied the client list first, watching the progress bar creep, each percentage point a step toward freedom. Then I dragged the folder of incriminating emails, Greg's slimy instructions, Dad's cold approval, onto the drive. My breath hitched as the files transferred, the weight of what I was doing sinking in. I opened my email, fingers flying over the keyboard. "Thanks for the $1, I typed to Mom and Dad, my voice echoing in my head like a battle cry. "I'm taking my client list and your dirty secrets. Don't contact me." I hit send, the sound of the click louder than a gunshot in my mind. Then I went nuclear. Blocked their numbers, their emails, Margot's Instagram. Even Dad's rarely used LinkedIn. Every tie to them, severed in seconds. My heart pounded, a mix of terror and exhilaration, like I'd just jumped off a cliff and found wings. "Holy fucking shit, Eloise," I muttered, half laughing, half panicking. "You're really doing this." I grabbed my purse, that dollar bill still inside like a taunting ghost, and slipped out of the office. The glass doors reflected my silhouette, a woman unmoored but unbroken. Outside, the Seattle air was sharp with rain, the pavement slick under my sneakers. My beat-up Toyota coughed to life, its dashboard lights flickering like my nerves. I drove through the empty streets, the city's neon glow smearing past my windshield. I didn't have a plan, not really. Just a USB burning a hole in my pocket and a fire in my gut. The bus station was my destination, a gray, fluorescent-lit limbo where I could disappear. As I parked, the clock on my dashboard read 2:01 a.m. I sat there, gripping the steering wheel, the engine's sputter mirroring my racing thoughts. You just burned it all down, I whispered to myself, the words tasting like freedom and fear. I thought of Margot's squeal at the gala, her Bentley gleaming under the lights, and Mom's patronizing smile as she handed me that $1. I thought of the emails, their plan to let me take the fall for their greed. They'd built their empire on my back, used my name to hide their crimes, and thought I'd stay quiet because I was capable. Fuck that. I wasn't their scapegoat anymore. That client list was my lifeline, my proof that I was more than their disposable daughter. And those fraudulent documents, they were my sword, ready to cut their lies to pieces. I stepped out of the car, the rain soaking my hair, and walked toward the bus station's flickering sign. Each step felt heavier, like I was carrying the weight of every year I'd been ignored. Every moment I'd been less than Margot. The station smelled of stale coffee and wet concrete. A few late-night stragglers slumped on benches. I bought a ticket to Portland, my hands shaking as I handed over crumpled bills. I didn't know what waited there, but I knew I couldn't stay in Seattle, trapped in their world. As I boarded the bus, the driver's bored glance met my wide-eyed stare. I slid into a seat by the window, the USB in my pocket, a small, hard reminder of my rebellion. The city faded behind me, its lights swallowed by the dark. I was a survivor, not just of their betrayal, but of my own silence. Whatever came next, whether chaos or redemption, I'd face it on my terms. They'd underestimated me for the last time. The bus rattled into Portland at dawn, its brakes squealing as I stepped onto a rain-slicked sidewalk, clutching my duffel bag like a lifeline. I'm Eloise, the survivor who'd just burned every bridge to my family's empire in Seattle, taking my VIP client list and their dirty fraud secrets with me. The USB in my pocket felt heavier than the dollar bill they'd mocked me with, a reminder of the war I'd declared at 2 a.m. Portland's misty air was sharp, cleansing, like the city was washing away the grime of my past. I was 28, broke and alone, but for the first time, I felt a flicker of something new, freedom to be more than their shadow. I found a studio apartment in a rundown building, its walls stained with years of neglect, the kind of place where the radiator hissed like an angry cat. My savings barely covered the deposit, and the $200 in my wallet was all I had until I figured things out. Sitting on a thrift store mattress, the springs creaking under me, I called Clara, my college best friend who knew real estate better than anyone. Over greasy diner coffee, the air thick with the smell of burnt toast, I spilled everything, the gala's humiliation, the forged loan in my name, my midnight heist. Those fuckers used you as a fall guy, Clara said, slamming her mug down, her eyes blazing. Let's hit back. That client list is yours. Let's build something with it. We hatched a plan to start a consulting firm, using my VIP list to connect high rollers with properties. Clara's hustle matched mine, and her no-bullshit attitude was the anchor I needed. I met with a lawyer friend of hers, a guy named Sam, who smelled like cheap aftershave and spoke like he'd seen it all. He reviewed my files, nodding. No contract ties that list to Turner Properties. It's yours, Eloise. You built it. Relief washed over me, but it was short-lived. My old work email was blowing up with voicemails from Mom and Dad, screaming about betrayal, threatening lawsuits. "You're a goddamn traitor," Dad's voice roared through one message before I blocked it. I'd already cut them off, but their rage followed me like a ghost. I wasn't done fighting. Those fraudulent documents, the emails proving they'd pinned a $1 million tax evasion scheme on me, were my ace. Late one night, hunched over my laptop in the dim glow of my apartment, I sent an anonymous tip to the IRS, attaching every damning file. My finger hovered over the send button, heart pounding. "Fuck you all," I whispered, clicking it. The confirmation email felt like a gunshot, final and irreversible. I knew what it could do: freeze their accounts, unleash audits, maybe even jail time. It wasn't just revenge, It was justice for the years they'd erased me, for the dollar they thought I was worth. Days blurred into weeks of scraping by. I lived on instant noodles and thrift store clothes. My apartment's leaky faucet, a constant drip, drip, drip that matched my doubts. Was I crazy to think I could start over? Every morning, I'd check my bank account, the balance shrinking like my confidence. But Clara kept me grounded. We cold-called clients from my list, pitching our new firm from a rented office that smelled of mildew. Slowly, a few nibbled, a tech mogul needing a vacation home, a retiree wanting a condo. Each call felt like a brick in a new foundation, proof I wasn't just Margot's forgotten sister. I'd walk Portland streets at dusk, the Willamette River catching the last light, its ripples calming my nerves. The city was softer than Seattle, its quirky coffee shops and graffiti-covered walls, a world away from my family's polished empire. I'd pass strangers laughing outside bars, their voices warm, and think, maybe I can belong here. But late at night, alone with the hum of my fridge, I'd see Margot's Bentley, Mom's tight smile, Dad's cold approval of their scheme. The anger kept me going, a fire that warmed me through the cold. I wasn't just rebuilding, I was rewriting my story, proving I was more than their disposable pawn. Clara and I landed our first small deal, a $50,000 commission that felt like a fortune. It wasn't much, but it was ours, earned without their lies. I'd look at my reflection in the apartment's cracked mirror, my eyes tired but sharp, and think, I'm not done yet. The IRS tip was just the start. Turner Properties was still standing, but I knew it wouldn't last. I was a survivor, not just of their betrayal, but of my own silence. Whatever came next, success or struggle, I'd face it as Eloise, not the girl they'd reduced to $1. Portland's gray skies hung low that afternoon, the air thick with the promise of rain as I stepped out of our tiny office, the buzz of our first $200,000 contract still humming in my veins. I'm Eloise, the survivor who'd clawed my way out of my family's betrayal, armed with a stolen client list and their dirty fraud secrets. 6 months in Portland had hardened me. Clara and I were building something real, something mine, while back in Seattle, Turner Properties was crumbling under the IRS probe I'd triggered. My anonymous tip had worked like a slow poison, freezing their accounts and spooking clients. But when I saw their familiar black Mercedes parked outside my apartment, my stomach twisted. They'd found me. Mom, Dad, and Margot stood on the sidewalk, their faces a storm of rage and desperation. Dad's jaw was tight, his eyes blazing like he could burn me to ash. Mom clutched her purse, her lips trembling. Margot, usually all Instagram polish, looked disheveled, her mascara smudged from crying. I froze, the USB in my pocket feeling like a loaded gun. Eloise, Dad's voice boomed, echoing off the brick building. You're destroying our legacy. I stood my ground, my sneakers rooted to the wet pavement. The Portland drizzle started, cold drops stinging my face, but I wasn't the girl who'd cowered at their gala anymore. You destroyed me first, I shot back, my voice steady as steel. You signed my name to your $1 million scam. The confrontation felt like a scene from a movie, the kind where the hero finally faces the villains. Mom stepped forward, her voice cracking. How could you send those documents to the IRS? We're your family, I laughed, a bitter sound that cut through the rain. Family? You used me as a fucking fall guy to protect Margot's influencer act. I pointed at my sister, who flinched. You gave her a Bentley for selfies while I got $1 and a prison sentence waiting to happen. Dad's face reddened, his fists clenched. You stole our client list. That's our property, I smirked, feeling the fire I'd nurtured in Portland flair. My client list, I built it. Every name, every deal, mine. You don't get to claim it now. Margot broke, her sobs loud and messy. Eloise, I didn't know about the loan, she choked out, her voice raw. They pushed me to charm Charles Reed, to keep him investing. I was just doing what they wanted. Her admission hit like a gut punch, not because I pitied her, but because it confirmed everything. They'd propped her up as their golden goose, her follower count and flirty lunches with Reed their ticket to his millions, while I was the disposable one, my clean record a convenient shield for their tax evasion. "Too late for tears, Margot," I said, my voice ice cold. "You all chose this." I'd already escalated my revenge. Days earlier, I'd leaked more fraud documents to an anonymous X account, and Knocker-Turner fraud was now a wildfire, trending across Seattle's news feeds. A local outlet had picked it up, publishing a scathing exposé that named Dad and his CFO. Clients were jumping ship, and the IRS was circling like sharks. As I faced my family, I pulled my phone from my pocket, showing them the latest article, its headline screaming, "Turner Properties faces fraud allegations." Mom gasped, clutching Dad's arm. "You've ruined us," she whispered. I leaned in, my voice low and sharp. "You ruined yourselves when you thought I'd stay quiet." The rain fell harder, soaking us all, but I felt untouchable. Dad tried one last threat, his voice shaking. "We'll sue you for that list. You'll regret this." I shook my head, almost pitying him. "Go ahead. Explain to a judge why you forged my signature to hide $1 million. I'll wait." His silence was my victory. They turned to leave, Margot's sobs fading into the drizzle, their Mercedes peeling out with a screech. I stood there, heart pounding, the city's pulse sinking with mine. I'd burned their empire to the ground, and it felt like justice. Not just for the dollar, not just for the loan, but for every year they'd made me feel like nothing. I was a survivor, and I'd made them pay. As I climbed the stairs to my apartment, the creak of each step echoed my resolve. Clara was waiting inside, her laptop open to our next client pitch. "You okay?" she asked, seeing my wet hair and blazing eyes. I nodded, a smile breaking through. Better than ever. I'd won this round, but the fight wasn't over. My firm was just starting, and their collapse was my fuel. I'd build something bigger, something they'd never touch. The rain outside softened, and I knew this was my turning point. The moment I stopped running and started rising. The Portland skyline glowed gold under the sunset, the Willamette River catching the light like a mirror to my new life. I'm Eloise, the survivor who walked away from my family's betrayal with a stolen client list and their fraud secrets, turning their empire to ash. 2 years after that rainy confrontation outside my apartment, where I faced down Mom, Dad, and Margot, I stood on my balcony, a glass of cheap wine in hand, feeling something I hadn't in years: peace. Their screams, Dad's, "You're destroying us," and Margot's tearful excuses, still echoed sometimes, but they were ghosts now, fading against the life I'd built. I wasn't the girl they'd handed $1 to anymore. I was a woman who'd taken their betrayal and forged it into fire. My firm with Clara was thriving, hitting $2 million in revenue, a number that felt like a middle finger to Turner Properties' collapse. Our office, once a mildew-scented hole, was now a sleek loft downtown, its windows framing Portland's quirky streets. We'd turned my VIP client list into a goldmine, closing deals with tech moguls and retirees who trusted us, not my family's tarnished name. The news of Turner Properties' downfall had spread like wildfire after my leaks. Turner fraud trended for weeks, and the IRS had seized their assets. Last I heard, Dad was selling the waterfront mansion to pay legal fees, and Margot's Instagram was a shadow of its former glory, her posts begging for relevance. I'd moved from that leaky studio to a cozy one-bedroom, its walls painted a soft blue I'd chosen myself. The dollar bill from that gala night sat framed on my bookshelf, not a wound but a trophy. Every time I glanced at it, I remembered the fire it sparked, the moment I stopped begging for their scraps and started fighting for myself. Clara and our team were my new family, their laughter filling our Friday pizza nights, their support a warmth I'd never known in Seattle. I'd found a community at a women's shelter too, where I volunteered, sharing my story with women who'd been overlooked, their eyes mirroring my own past pain. Fuck their bullshit, I'd tell them, my voice steady. You're worth more than they'll ever see. Build your own fire. Sometimes, late at night, I'd sit on my couch, the city's hum filtering through my window, and think about Margot's sobs, her admission about Charles Reed, or Mom's trembling voice calling me a traitor. It stung, like a bruise you press to feel the ache. I didn't hate them, not anymore. They were flawed, trapped in their own greed, choosing Margot's shine over my substance because it was easier. But I didn't need their apologies or their love. I'd spent years chasing their approval, thinking it would make me whole. That dollar bill taught me otherwise. My worth wasn't in their eyes. It was in the deals I closed, the lives I touched, the empire I built from nothing. One evening, as I spoke at the shelter, a woman named Lena, her hands calloused from years of struggle, grabbed my arm. "How'd you do it?" she asked, her voice raw. "How'd you walk away from family?" I looked at her, the dollar bill flashing in my mind, and said, "They didn't define me. I did. When they try to break you, you don't bend. You burn their lies down and rise." Her nod, fierce and determined, was why I kept telling my story. It wasn't just mine anymore. It was a beacon for anyone who'd been erased. Portland had become my home. Its rainy streets and coffee shops a canvas for my new life. I'd hike the Columbia River Gorge with Clara, the mist on my face a reminder of how far I'd come. I'd laugh with our team over beers, their stories weaving into mine, no longer overshadowed by Margot's spotlight. I'd learned to love the small things, my apartment's view, the shelter's gratitude, the quiet pride of a deal well closed. That dollar bill, meant to belittle, had become my badge of survival, proof I could turn their cruelty into strength. As I stood on my balcony that night, the city's lights twinkling below, I felt whole. The journey hadn't been easy, nights of doubt, eating noodles in a cold apartment, fearing I'd fail. But I'd survived, not just their betrayal, but my own fear of being nothing. If you're out there, feeling invisible, listen, you're enough. They might hand you $1, a dismissal, a lie. But you've got a fire inside. Let it burn. Build something they can't touch. I'm Eloise, the woman who took $1 and made it a legacy. You can too. If my story hit you, I want to hear yours. Have you ever had to walk away from people who made you feel small, whether it's family, work, or somewhere else? Drop your thoughts below. I read every one. Thanks for listening to my journey, for sticking with me through the mess and the fire. It means more than you know. I'll be back with more stories, so stay tuned. Keep fighting for your worth. You've got this.